Hello, everybody. I'm so looking forward to this time that we're going to spend together and share my incredible passion for understanding energy healing in the context of the latest research around trauma and brain science and how the brain and body systems work. For energy is the medium that connects the mind with the body. And as you learn the interplay between the two, you become more effective not only in reaching your own potential in your own life, but helping clients as well. So welcome. So you are in the right place if you want to understand more about the interplay and really explore your own concepts about subtle energy and your old concepts about how the brain and body system works, where maybe you didn't include subtle energy in that context, especially in the therapeutic setting. I want to really look at an integrated way of bridging the worlds of cognitive therapists, subtle energy healers, somatic trauma therapists, and mindfulness practitioners. Because from the work that I've been doing over the past decade, I've created an integrated system where they are not separate. And I think that the next evolution of therapy and healing is to really look at the whole person, the whole body, instead of just the energetics or just the somatics and cognitive or just the mindfulness-based training. So I'm looking forward to sharing my experience over the past decade, almost 2 decades, of doing a more integrated approach to energy healing and therapy. So you're in the right place if you want to really, really explore at the deep subconscious level how subtle energy is that physical and tangible medium that connects the mind with the body. Many of my students join my certification program saying, will I be able to sense the energy? And actually, that's the easiest thing that I teach. The harder thing is learning how to connect to that inner wholeness and really use that mind as an energetic tool that can resonate at the wholeness. I call it advanced mindfulness. So we'll talk more about how the mind is an energetic tool and how to really believe in your spiritual wholeness. So yes, if you believe in your spiritual wholeness and you want to explore how subtle energy is the doorway to the subconscious of your brilliance, but also as well as the doorway to looking at where you're not living from your brilliance, then this is the right place for you. I also love to talk about trauma. There is what in Boulder, Colorado, we call either big T trauma, like the war, or little t trauma, which is more developmental trauma that happens over a period of time, like a water dripping on a rock will wear the rock away. That's little t trauma, and yet it's still as significant. And I'll also talk about what does mental illness look like in the energy field? How does it present? And if you are an individual or practitioner wanting more from your life and work, I am going to give you a ton of tangible practices that you can start right away. So let's get started. So what we'll do today, it'll be about an hour long. Please have pen and paper handy for notes. I will also show you some really cool animations of energetic transformation and details about how does energy transform consciousness through the body? How do you feel to heal? And what are the principles for making that happen that you can include right away in your life? Some really powerful tools and perspectives to take home with you today. So I call my work Mind, Energy, Body Transformation because I'm really excited to start working with the whole human. I used to call it energy psychotherapy, yet EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, is a tapping energetic technique, and they call it energy psychology. And it just didn't seem to fit given that I'm working through the latest research of brain science along with the energetics and the somatics and the mindfulness techniques in the body. So yes, I call this work Mind Energy Body Transformation, and I'll provide you with some really useful tools for learning how to feel in that integrated way that brings you power and helps you heal yourself and better support clients. So please stay tuned at the very end. I'm going to give some free giveaways. So please stay to the end. And I'll also give you an opportunity to learn more and take it deeper. I can't teach you everything in just an hour webinar. So I'm not going to leave you hanging at the end of this webinar. I'll give you some opportunities that are low costs in order to take it the next level, and some free gifts. So a little bit about me. I guess my story began from my traumatic childhood. I had a rather interesting childhood. A father that was a narcissist and somewhat delusionary and an alcoholic. And it actually gave me the gift of needing to heal myself at a very deep level. And so I studied a lot of different things. My first meditation class was when I was 14 years old, and it was triggered as a result of my boyfriend dying of a heart attack at that age. It was a traumatic event, yet one of the principles of my work is pain is the energetic portal back to wholeness. Actually, emotional pain and life challenge opens an energetic vortex to reclaim more of your wholeness wisdom and really start changing reality for your highest good. And we'll talk more about that in the training, but that's a little bit about how I got started when I was just a little kid, about, I don't know, maybe I was 3 or 4 years old. I used to have night terrors, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be screaming and very fearful, and then I would open my eyes in my dark bedroom and it would be filled with light. It would be filled, I didn't see angels, I just saw light energy that surrounded me in this loving embrace. And when I attended the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, I actually had forgotten that I used to see energy. And I attended it for 6 years. 2 of the years were in their teacher training program. And I consider Barbara Brennan my primary teacher. She shaped my life in a way where I could recover from trauma. It was a very important pinnacle. So in my awakening process, in my ability to reclaim my wholeness, I sought out instruction from Barbara Brennan, from a traditional counseling program. I got my licensed professional counselor. I studied Qigong, Reiki 2, Healing Touch. I was a massage therapist for 10 years. I pretty much became a nerd and studied everything. I traveled around Asia and I studied meditation, and I was a meditation teacher. I studied body-centered somatic practices, brain science enthusiast, and growing up, my horse was pretty much my healer. As a kid in high school, coming from a really dysfunctional family, and I was kind of different. I didn't really fit in. And my horse, whose name was So Sweet, really provide the loving care that I didn't get at home. And so I started out having horses as my healer and as my divine support. And so now I also do horse-initiated psychotherapy. Consider myself a spiritual traveler. I've traveled all around the world, lived in Asia and Africa, and every place I've lived, that area has taught me something important, how to awaken. I used to live in Nepal and ride my bike up a mountain to a meditation center and meditate every morning. So my travels brought me back to myself. I had to leave and travel around the world to really discover who I was. And now I bring those secrets of my discovery back to you in this integrated system and this new paradigm for looking at energy, where we don't push, pull, and allow energy. We awaken something very deep within you. I'm an author of this book, Explorer's Mind, A Map to Freedom. And I was a former Washington, D.C. lobbyist for the disadvantaged. I help empower people, youth get jobs, those that were on welfare become self-sufficient. And I also did that overseas, working with women in development projects and women empowerment projects. And now I am the founder of the Mind Energy Body School of Transformation. Looking forward to joining you in this time we have together. Let's get started. So I told you a little bit about my story, but I wanted to show you this picture because my story is founded in the belief that anything and everything can heal, and that our opportunities are available to us as we learn how. I teach 5 spiritual laws, steps, and skills to awaken consciousness of wholeness to heal even the deepest trauma. And over the past 20 years, I have seen people spontaneously support themselves and receive support from me to heal cancer, to heal chronic depression, to heal even MS. So that's a picture that a student of mine gave me. It's a big picture on my wall in my healing center. And there's the light of our wholeness coming in, represented by the darkness of our child consciousness. And she gave it to me saying that, wow, I created this picture for you, Carolyn. You are my teacher, and I painted this picture knowing I would give it to my teacher someday. And it's pretty profound because there's me as a kid, and the outfit's the same and everything. So there is a quantum reality where you and I are connected, this magical quantum reality where we can start learning how to show up and support each other in more clean, clear, and sophisticated manners. And that's what this new energy paradigm training is about. And that there is my family. We were traveling, and I thought this picture was funny because it symbolized how difficult life can be. It's like you're holding up a big rock during the day. But as you connect to the energy of your bigger self, you can laugh and smile even though you have a lot on your shoulders. So during this training, I want you to think about yourself as an open Zen bowl, being empty and ready to receive new information that might be different than what you've heard before. Because there is this quantum reality where there is limitless potential. Yet we too often think, react, and feel from a more Newtonian fixed reality. So in quantum reality, everything is made out of particles of energy that resonate at higher and lower frequencies of consciousness. Frequencies of consciousness that can change. So the lower frequencies can change to the higher and the higher to the lower. Yet if you live and think and react in a fixed Newtonian reality, which is what our brain system wants us to do, it wants us to think that emotions are reality, that our sense of self is a fixed force that can't change, that everything is solid, our thoughts are real, our emotions are real, and our perceptions are real. Yet with the new energy paradigm, you can start seeing thoughts, emotions, even your sense of self as just particles of energy that can resonate at lower and higher frequencies. Because subtle energy is the physical representation of consciousness. And I say physical representation of consciousness because, as I mentioned earlier, sensing energy as a tangible physical reality is easy. Transforming it from sadness to joy, from insecurity to a centered knowing of who you are, is more of an art form and more challenging. Yet it is a physical reality that can be a tangible tool in your awakening process. because it is the doorway to the subconscious and it connects the mind with the body. So, what does that mean in your own reality? So, let's say you're thinking a negative thought like your boyfriend broke up with you and you're feeling the pain of that. You're feeling rejected and abandoned. Well, that feeling and that emotion is a thought in your mind. But if you feel the energy of that thought, I call it a core distortion. It's a core distortion to the truth of who you are. That thought, that core distortion that you're not worthy or that you've been abandoned, is really a doorway to deep healing as you let that thought be felt in the body and the energy system, in the somatics and the energy system. And by going into the body and feeling the energy there, you can actually reveal some subconscious negative patterns that are repeating in your life. So I'm going to invite all of you, if you don't have the skill of feeling thoughts, emotions, and feeling energetic constructs, energy systems in the physical body and knowing them in the mind, I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. And also, give you a personal challenge of, can you start feeling positive sensations throughout the day? That alone will change your life. It represents what I call high vibrational consciousness. Simply feeling sensations of tingles and flows opens that quantum reality of feeling the energy of joy, wisdom, grace, compassion. I call it HVC, high vibrational consciousness. And we'll talk more about how subtle energy is that physical representation of consciousness. And if you can feel the sensation, the somatics of that HVC in the mind and in the body, that can take you a long way to actually learning how to feel to heal. Because feeling, how you feel determines if you heal or rewound. So really feeling, wake up in the morning, maybe put one hand on your heart, one on your belly, and just feel sensations in the morning as you wake up. Or before you go to bed, feel sensations of tingles and flows if you can, of high vibrational consciousness, and then be curious of how the sensations can link to a level of consciousness, a joy, a wisdom. In the beginning, I always ask my clients, and I suggest you do the same, let them begin by just feeling the good stuff. And eventually, once they're resourced enough, they can start learning how to feel the low vibrational consciousness, that sadness, self-hate, insecurity, stress, fear, arrogance. Because if you don't feel enough high vibrational consciousness, and I'll give you a video demo in a bit of what this looks like, and a lot of high vibrational consciousness, you can really mess up your nervous system when you go to feel sadness. So for those of you that are hands-on energy healers and you have your hands on your client and they're feeling trauma and emotional pain, if they don't feel it in a certain way, they're actually going to spread the pain. An energy technique that I work with is what you focus on grows. And if you focus on feeling just the negative, you're going to grow what I call low vibrational consciousness. Yet if you focus on the good stuff and you're not disassociating from the bad stuff, but you're just making a real conscious choice to self-identify as the tingles and flows of the high vibrational consciousness of energy in the body. Your whole life can change. So simply taking home right now for you and your clients the technique of feeling the emotion and sensation. You have to feel both. Eventually develop that skill of that high vibrational consciousness of the good stuff, and then self-identify that as you. You go a long way to creating healing and spiritual awakening. So let's take this into a practical exercise. When Practicing mindfulness, energy work, or somatic and body-centered therapy. What does it mean to have HVC, high vibrational consciousness, and LVC? So trauma is LVC, and what does that mean in terms of the body? So 3 HVC mind keys that you can practice and give to your clients to practice during the day is detachment. When you're talking about energetic constructs, detachment has to hold a certain frequency for there to be really detachment. In a lot of meditation practices, they talk about something called the objective observer. Well, I have found through years of private practice that many of my clients and students during meditation are rewounded because the frequency of energy of their so-called objective observer is not a high enough frequency. It actually creates a rewounding if it's not a high enough frequency. So for detachment to be effective, I call it something called the enlightened observer. It has to hold enough of really clear frequency of wholeness for you to be able to be present with the negative emotion and not be the negative emotion. You need to be differentiated and individualized. So 3 keys to actually start in practicing in your life to keep your mind resonating at a high enough frequency of energetic awareness to feel pain but not become the pain is detachment, differentiation, and individualization. And those concepts, those states of being, have an actual energetic frequency that you can experience in the somatics in the body. And we'll talk more about that. So one of the frequencies is something called magnetic energy. Barbara Brennan calls it the Hara line. I've kind of renamed it as the intention line, and I see it slightly different than how she does. I see it as this strong magnetic frequency that represents kind of more male energy. It helps you create some space, a breath between you and the emotional trauma or challenge you're experiencing. And here's a video of the broken intention line or Hara line, and then check out this animation of it reconnecting. When that energy reconnects, as in this video, it's so powerful. It's a really positive male aligned energy. And we'll talk later about the energy of what I call core being. Barbara Brennan calls it the core star, the core essence. It's your spiritual wholeness frequency, which holds a more feminine energy. When you combine the feminine energy of that spiritual wholeness, that core star essence frequency, combined with this more male energy of the intention line, you can become differentiated, detached, and individualized from that emotional pain. And then you're the transformer creating your life instead of feeling victimized or shamed by your experiences and trauma. I taught this frequency in a weekend workshop to a therapist who then took it to their clients. And their clients who were collapsing into depression, calling them all the time, stopped calling because they were okay. It's a very powerful energetic frequency, especially when you feel it somatically in the body, and combine it with what I call the core being frequency of your spiritual wholeness. And we'll talk more about that. Yet, if you're going to be able to really not have your mind vibrate at the frequency of pain when it connects to the body, using that intention line is helpful. And I want to talk to you more about the mind as an energetic tool. Here's a demonstration of the difference between HVC and LVC. If you watch this video, notice the white paint in the one jar, and it just has a dab of trauma, black paint representing trauma. And when I play this video, you can see that even though there's hardly any so-called trauma connecting to the white paint, the positive sense of self, that brilliance of your wholeness, it takes a lot of wholeness to transform trauma. And so when you're thinking about working with yourself or your clients, if you're going to be feeling all these negative feelings, looping thoughts, traumatic pain, you have to really be able to have that detachment, that differentiation and individualization. Otherwise, you're just spreading the black paint. So whether you do hands-on work or you work somatically with a client or you're just working to awaken yourself, I want you to really notice that the powerful 3 mindfulness keys take into your practice and to your clients. Make sure when they are feeling they're detached, differentiated, and individualized, and that you're thinking about looking at those concepts in terms of energetic frequencies. So here's the emotional body, or what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body, an animation of it. So if your mind is feeling the pain, and it's in the body, feeling the pain at the frequency of the pain, you're going to create more black paint. But if your mind is changing the brain, resonating at the frequency of wholeness when it connects to the body, check out this animation, you get transformation. And my whole life is really devoted to helping people get this transformation. You see, when I was learning this work, I would go to an energy healer and I got rewounded because they didn't teach me about how the trauma in the brain and body systems worked. And then I went to a therapist and they couldn't track the energy, so I was rewounded again. Nobody ever told me that I wasn't my pain. Nobody ever said, oh, detach, differentiate, individualize. It's just an energetic construct you can use. God created for us so we can transform it and reclaim our wholeness. Please tell yourself in that it's just energy. It's just a quantum reality. It's not a Newtonian reality. We can change, we can awaken, we can heal, and we can support and love each other along the way. So what does that mean in the mind, energy, and body system? Well, it means that sometimes you have to get your client up off the table or out of the chair and have them actually do some physical exercise. The blue thing on the bottom is a BOSU, and I actually have my clients sit on a ball during the sessions of physio ball because it brings them into their core, it brings them into the body. I have them do various exercises using a Pilates roller in order to shift trauma when they're starting to lose that differentiation, individualization, and detachment. I bring them really into physical movements, and I have a whole training of how, but I just want you to give you a taste of it right now. Physical movements, get them in their body, out of their heads, out of the collapsed energy or the charging of the negative anger. And we're going to talk more about that next. Because if they feel trauma, this is a diagram, if they feel trauma and their energy shrinks to the size of the trauma, it's going to rewound them. But if their energy system is big and they stand on a BOSU or a ball or against the wall, I have 50 different exercises in my certification program that I teach people to help the energy field get bigger than the pain. So if you're a somatic therapist or a mindfulness practitioner and they start feeling pain and they are not differentiated from that pain, and their field shrinks to the size of the pain, they're going to rewound. Learning how to track the frequency of your client's mind when it connects to the body or when it feels an emotion will empower you greatly. For instance, I've got some clients that have come to me who have worked with trauma specialists, but the trauma specialist couldn't really assess if when they were feeling emotional pain, if they were really transforming that emotional pain or if they were just re-feeling it and re-experiencing it, because they couldn't track the frequency of their mind when it connected to the body and when it felt the pain. And so I'm going to encourage you all to really open to the possibility that it's really not that hard to learn how to help yourself or your client feel the pain from a higher vibrational mind that can actually transform the pain and not rewound. I've had clients come to me that have been trained by previous therapists to actually rewire their brain to collapse into the emotional pain because they weren't taught to differentiate when they're feeling the pain. So they now have chronic depression. And every time they feel an emotion, they kind of collapse into it. So learning how to feel to heal is really important. And I would love for you to explore that concept deeper, because it really affects the nervous system. The nervous system is everywhere in the physical body, and it is, in ponds, they look at the frogs, the healthiness of the frogs to determine if the ecosystem is well. Well, I look at the healthiness and the vibration of a client's nervous system to determine if their ecosystem, if their mind, energy, and body system as well. Because if their nervous system is hyperreactive or underreactive, hyporeactive, it's an indication that they need some extra support. So really learn how to sense the energy of a client's nervous system and how that nervous system is reacting when they're feeling emotional change or during the healing is a very empowering tool that you can learn and start exploring how to get more skilled at. In my certification training, I teach something called a neurological upgrade, where you actually learn how to shift the nervous system of a person back from a dysregulated state to a healed state. And it's a really powerful tool to learn. So I want to talk a little bit about neuroplasticity. It's the ability of the brain to rewire. So I told you about those clients that would come to me and their brain was basically rewired to collapse and feel pain. I would say a third of my clients I have to help feel pain and connect to their body, and a third of my clients I have to teach how to feel less pain because they're so over-identified. So neuroplasticity can go both ways. You can rewire to a higher consciousness, or you can rewire to a lower consciousness. And over the past decades of seeing clients, I think it's really empowering for you to learn how to track the energy of what is happening with your client. Are they rewiring to higher consciousness, or are they rewounding? Because the brain has a negative bias. Rick Hanson is, if you get his books, he's just wonderful. And when I do the replay, I'll give you a bunch of resources that you can read and names of books that you can take this even deeper. And Rick Hanson talks about the negative bias of the brain. The thing with neuroplasticity, it's not like you rewire it and you're done. The brain wants to go to the negative sense of self. The brain wants to go to the negative ego identification. So you have to create a system where you're constantly supporting a higher vibrational consciousness and rewiring of the brain and body systems and energy systems. Because there is, Rick Hanson calls it the monkey, which is the higher brain, the mouse, which is the midbrain or limbic system, and the reptile, which is the primal brain. You have all those three animals in a very small space in your head, and they're fighting and reactive. So you need really a system, and a system throughout the day. I teach 5 skills, 5 steps, and 5 spiritual laws that helps you throughout the day self-regulate back to your higher self, rewire the brain and body systems to help overcome that negative bias of the brain. And I wish I could teach you it all in an hour, but yeah, I'll give you an opportunity to learn more about that system after the webinar's over. So I want to talk a little bit about the DNA and epigenetics. So Bruce Lipton, who I will give you his resources if you don't know about Bruce already, he talks about how DNA is the blueprint that creates what's going to happen in your DNA. So you're given a blueprint, just like a house has a blueprint of how the house can be built. But consciousness comes in, higher consciousness, the essence of who you are can come in to that DNA blueprint and decide which of that coding gets activated or not activated. So let's say you have cancer as a resource in your DNA. Consciousness can come in and deactivate the expression of that cancer through your DNA, or it can activate it. So having great awareness and understanding Bruce Lipton's take on epigenetics can really empower you to change something I call the biological consciousness container. We all think that we are spiritual wholeness. Well, sometimes we think that, right? Sometimes we think we're no good. But what determines whether we know we're whole or whether we're lost in our no good aspects? Well, I label that thing that determines that is something called your biological consciousness container. It is the DNA, it's the negative bias of the brain, it's the neuroplasticity and how your nervous system and your brain and body system are wired to higher or lower consciousness. What I want to express to you is that you can actually use your higher consciousness to rewire your brain and body systems, which I call your biological consciousness container, to higher consciousness. Again, I use those 5 steps, skills, and spiritual laws, but you'll get a lot of more examples. What's fundamental to that rewiring of your biological consciousness container is whether you're detached, differentiated, and individualized. What is the frequency of your brain and your mind when it connects to the body? So what I'm actually saying is you can't change unless you change that biological consciousness container, including your brain. So we'll talk more about how to change and how to shift it. So here's an adorable picture of 2 otters and their hands are connected. So I want to offer you, but if you can track the energy, they also have huge 6 chakras, really brilliant 6 chakras. Their mind is resonating at a higher frequency. So what I want you to get is that your mind is an energetic tool that can rewire the biological consciousness container so that your level of spiritual wholeness is not capped biologically. And that the mind is at least as powerful as hands-on healing. And when you combine the mind with actual hands-on healing, it's even doubly powerful. And that's a new paradigm. And I'll talk a little bit later about how you're not pushing or pulling energy with your hand or your mind. You're instead resonating to awaken spiritual wholeness. And we'll talk more about this new energy paradigm of how I awaken and heal cancer and mental illness in the field. And when I say the field, I mean the energy field. And I want to just really put out there clearly, 10 years ago, I walked around and I was doing speeches and I was saying meditation really is energy work because the mind is that powerful. If you're not tracking the frequency of the mind during meditation, you are still doing energy work on yourself, but you're not tracking whether it's effective meditation or ineffective meditation. You can really empower yourself to learn how to track the frequency of the mind because meditation is energy work. It's as powerful as hands-on healing energy work. So what happens when your mind or a client's mind feels sensations in the body and believes they are the true expression of reality? Well, then you create that Newtonian system where you can't change. But if the mind goes into the body, feels sensations and emotions in the body, and questions the reality they're experiencing, and really looking at the frequency of that question, looking at the white paint concept, so much can change. Because of something called, in Healing Touch, they call it entrainment. Barbara Brennan calls it harmonic induction, whereas one frequency will resonate and teach the other frequency to shift to that frequency. So if you're a mom holding your son and you're resonating at this high frequency of love, you're actually raising your kid's frequency. Or if your kid's at a higher frequency and holding you, your kid is changing your frequency. think about that white paint, black paint demo. So moms, be aware of what frequency you're connecting to your kids with, therapists, coaches, practitioners, whether you're touching or not. Be aware of what your body, the energy transformers, is resonating at during the times when your clients are feeling sadness. Not just your hands, not just the words, but your whole physical body. You can learn how to resonate your physical body at a high enough frequency to help your client shift out of pain much quicker. And the same is true with an energy worker. Whether you're doing touch work, what is the frequency of your mind when it connects to your client's body, when it connects to your body during an energy healing session? And when we connect to our partners and friends and loved ones, I want to invite you all to have more awareness and choice around it. Just be curious. And I want to encourage you to get the skills to assess the frequency of your mind. What is it at when it's feeling the body? Because it is an energy transformer, that mind. And if it's resonating and merging with the pain, you're going to create more pain because what you focus on grows. So if your mind is feeling an emotion in a way where that emotion becomes more black paint and your mind goes to the frequency of the black paint, you're going to not be as skillful as you can be. And I really want to empower you guys to be more skillful. Trust me, it's not that hard to learn. It really isn't. It's not, because there is this bigger wholeness. Check out this animation of who can be in charge of your life. You are brilliant beyond belief. And as you learn how to resonate at that frequency of your spiritual wholeness, which is a more feminine energy, and combine it with the more male energy of that intention line, or Barbara Brennan calls it the heart line, you can really not only change your life, but change the world around you, because there is this bigger, more beautiful you just waiting to awaken to source. So I don't push, pull, or allow energy to flow. I consciously resonate at this frequency of wholeness throughout my mind, energy, and body systems. Let that energy move through my hands if I'm doing a hands-on healing. Let my mind resonate at that frequency so when I touch a client, their core being awakens, their wholeness awakens. I don't move energy through using the scenario of a river running through the physical body over rocks, shifting it. I instead awaken the deepest consciousness of wholeness. And that river becomes the truth of who you are. And it awakens the cells. And I can't really show you here, but in my in-person trainings and in some of my online classes, you get an opportunity of having an experience of what does it feel to run energy, allow energy to flow versus awaken energy. And it's so much more powerful if you learn to awaken energy versus run or allow energy to flow or pull stuff out of somebody. And I've seen really amazing results as a result of awakening energy versus having energy flow. For instance, working with cancer, I've seen spontaneous healings happen where they had an MRI before and then after the healing, and the awakening energy created complete elimination of tumors. So it's a really exciting thing. I don't anymore let any running or allowing of energy around cancer. I work with cancer and chronic illness very differently than I used to. So how does energy healing really work? Well, as I said, I don't really push, pull, or allow. I used to think that energy moved via intention, but over the last decades, I've noticed that actually energy is consciousness, and intention plays a role in it, but the consciousness of energy is really about connection and relationship. It's about the quality of connection, the quality and the intention around the openness and the relationship. So regardless of the challenge you face or your beginnings, you're whole. And it is that connection to wholeness and the awakening of wholeness in our clients and those around us that creates the deepest form of energy healing I have found over the years, especially when it relates to chronic illness and autoimmune disease. People who have autoimmune disease and MS type symptoms, their fields are so sensitive. And it's kind of like you imagine a hot wire that's been exposed to the air. And if you push, pull, or allow energy to flow into that hot wire, it can short out the whole system. So I really use awakening consciousness of the wholeness of the higher frequencies to heal such things. In schizophrenia, their energy field differs based on what's happening with whether they're having psychosis and what's happening with them. But fundamentally, they don't have any structure in their field. Their outer energy egg is diffuse and there's no good boundaries. And the challenge for a schizophrenic is they have to use their broken brain to help heal their broken brain. So if they're able to connect to their bigger self and assess whether their thoughts and their emotions and the things their brain is telling them are true or not, they actually have more empowerment around healing. But it's a degenerative disease and can be so challenging for not only them, yet the family. So if you're an energy healer, not a licensed therapist with actual experience working with schizophrenia, you need to really reach out and make sure that you don't charge their psychosis, charge their delusions, and provide a really grounded support. So I want to talk about depression in the field and collapse. On some level, depression is collapsing into the emotion and letting the energy be depressed to a lower vibrational consciousness or dark paint. And what I've found over the years is that they used to say feeling is healing. You need to feel to heal. And with depression, some people's brains get wired to feel and over identify as the pain, and they can't come out of the depression. And they actually, the more they feel, the more they collapse into it. So learning to help them feel less and differentiate and have more flow through their energy field is really important. Now I want to talk a little bit about adult attachment patterns and what is safety and what is codependency. So what are adult attachment patterns? Well, if energy interaction is about relationship and connection, it's really important we all know about our own negative ways of attaching to others. And there's 4 different attachment styles that people use. An avoidant, it's when we push people away. Disorganized, where we sometimes cling, sometimes push. And insecure attachment, where we just get clingy. And those are the 3 main psychological negative attachment patterns. And of course, what we want is secure attachment. So what does that look like energetically? Well, it's connection to your essence, to your true self. But it can be complicated to really be able to track the field of secure attachment and really know when somebody is in insecure attachment, disorganized, or avoidant attachment. Usually avoidant attachment can be easy to see because their field has a lot of boundary containment. They feel distant. You feel like you can't really see them. And again, it's easy to learn how to track the energy and assess. It's more complicated to help them move out of the avoidant pattern than it is to see it represented energetically and somatically in their body. So energetically disorganized attachment looks, well, sometimes they look like you can't see them and they are standoffish and defended, and sometimes they are insecure and needing a lot of positive reinforcement. Insecure attachment usually is when their energy field is undercharged and they're asking for you to confirm their value. So we did a training last weekend around attachment patterns, and there's 3 skills to healthy attachment patterns, and I suggest you write these 3 skills down because they're life-changing. 1, can you receive? Can you receive without blocks and really trust enough to receive? That's one of the skills. The other skill is, can you give? Well, most of us can give. But the third skill is where it gets complicated. Can you give to self when you'd rather receive? And the definition of what giving to self is kind of complicated. One of my students was like, I'm giving to self, but really they were just trying to suck energy from the room. They weren't really anchored into their core being and letting their core being fill them up and expand their energy field. That is what secure attachment is. Can you actually give to self when you'd rather receive? And a lot of the challenges with attachment patterns have to do with something about the vagus nerve and polyvagal theory. And I can't really go into all details about polyvagal theory and the vagus nerve, but I'll give you a quick overview. The vagus nerve, as you can see in this picture, basically runs through all parts of the organs in the body. It goes from the facial muscles all the way through all the major organs. And when you're not feeling safe to connect, it is called high dorsal tone. When you feel safe to connect, it's called high vagus tone. And that means that you're feeling secure in yourself. So learning how to help a client assess their vagus nerve and shift their vagus nerve is extremely powerful. Actually, learning how to teach your client and yourself how to tune into your nervous system and bring higher consciousness of that wholeness into the nervous system is a life-changing skill. And what that does, when you can self-regulate to secure attachment around others, and even if your client is being reactive, if you can do that for yourself or your partner or your kid is being reactive, means you have a big window of tolerance. So window of tolerance in trauma work is the ability of you to stay connected and differentiated from the difficulty that you're facing, from the stress you're dealing with. And as you learn how to transform energy at deeper and deeper levels, as you get better at feeling emotional pain and trauma at more extreme levels and not be the pain, but actually turn it into metaphorical white paint. I call that energetic weightlifting. In the beginning, when I work with a client, I ask them to learn how to feel just small, difficult emotions and transform that. I call them mini transformations. And then over time, they can start feeling more challenging things in their life and transform that and come back into balance in all 3 mind, energy, and body systems. Because traumatic memory is formed and stored very differently than everyday memory. It's called implicit memory. And that's when you experience trauma in the moment as if it's happening right now and not that it happened in the past. So learning how to track when that's happening and help using your energy system, helping the client shift their energy system so they can clearly realize that right now they're safe and that traumatic memory is not who they are, is quite powerful. And again, I teach the 5 skills, 5 steps, 5 spiritual laws to help you do that. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So many of us feel I am my emotional pain, right? Those negative beliefs, that difficult event, it defines my value. But are you really? And I love this picture because what we think we are and who we are needs to start matching up. So if you're anchored into who you are and you feel that from your wholeness, the negative emotions from your wholeness. I call that holding two places at once. And it's real life changing, and it's really the primary skills of true energy transformation. So let's talk about what mental illness looks like in the energy field. Okay, here's the energy grid of the third level of the field, the mental level of the field. And if you have Alzheimer's or dementia, your energy grid on the mental level of the field, third level of the field, Barbara Brennan, as I said earlier, has developed, she's helped us understand that there's 7 levels of the auric field, and the third level is the mental level. And on that level, dementia and Alzheimer's, that grid is torn apart. It's either too thick in some places, too thin in some places. It's basically kind of like you took scissors and cut through it. And when you're feeling anxiety, it's like thick rope. It's too much thinking. And when you bring your essence and your true self into these frequencies, you get energy transformation and you help heal anxiety. And my mom has dementia and it's helped her a lot. Unfortunately, I'm not there, so I can't keep supporting her on doing it. And because she has dementia, she can't remember to do it herself. But I've seen at least a lot of short-term gains by shifting it. So check out this animation video of the distorted grid where it's either too thick, too thin, or broken, can actually transform when you bring that awareness of your wholeness into that frequency. And it shifts back to a perfect third level of the field, the mental level of the field. So trauma and PTSD present mostly on the second and fourth levels of the field. The second or top picture is the emotional body, and you can see it as negative feelings about yourself, self-hate, lack of connection to your true self. Trauma on the fourth level of the field, which is the bottom picture, which is the astral body, is about relationship. And that fourth level field, according to Barbara Brennan, is the relationship level of the field. And since trauma happens in relationship to something, be it the war, or be it in relationship to a parent, or even a car accident in relationship to a car, it presents quite strongly on the fourth level of the field. Depression also presents on the second, the emotional body, and the fourth level of the field. Depression affects your relationships, your relationship to yourself and your relationship to others. And usually depression can be triggered based on a relationship to others. I've got so many clients that when they're rejected by their partner or when they have been put down by somebody, they go into a depression. And so that's where that secure attachment comes in. Can you self-identify, be your own authority, and define your own value? So I'm going to play the video again of the transformation of the emotional body, or the pain body as Eckhart Tolle calls it, on the top. And now let's play the animation of the transformation of that emotions related to relationship on the bottom. Cool? Okay, so let me talk a little bit about mania and how that presents in the energy field. So if I have a client that comes in a manic episode, I immediately ground them. If they take all that exuberance of their brilliance and really invite them to bring the energy of that mania into their bone marrow, especially through the femur and lower leg, they can actually come back into balance quite quickly. It's a very powerful technique to ground the sensations and the consciousness of their brilliance, because mania is when somebody is thinks they're great, Sometimes people shop too much when they're manic, they talk too much, they can actually get a lot done if they stay focused in their mania, but that's unfortunately not what happens. But if you help ground them into the physical body, it can help with the mania tremendously. So this is an animation of the chakras and how they spin. So chakras are actually energetic portals of consciousness. And chakras bring in energy into the physical body. And they represent certain emotional states. Each chakra has a different emotional state. And I'll actually add an attachment to the replay of what each chakra means at the emotional level for you to use. But I want to talk about the third chakra, because the third chakra is where the ego is held. And it's also where there's a lot of brain tissue held in that stomach area. And if you're in depression, if you're having trouble regulating your nervous system, coming into the third chakra and supporting connection to your positive sense of self, your true self, is extremely effective. And even taking probiotics, they've done studies where if you take a lot of probiotics, it helps you feel more resilient. So it's very positive to take probiotics and really support that third chakra when you feel overwhelmed, stressed, and collapsed. There's many ways to do that. Eat healthy, exercise, and again, differentiate, detach, and don't become the pain that you are feeling. So let's talk about some case studies, actual examples of clients I've worked with. So you can actually track the energy of a client when they come in the room and tell if they're frozen, if they're in a trauma freeze response. And there's a lot you can do for them. You can, I mostly do physical exercise. I definitely don't put them on the table to do table work. I usually get them to do physical movement. And I even will have them squat against a wall and try and get this shaking energy through them. Now, why would I want to have a client shake? It's because when I see a freeze response in their energy field, it it means that there was a time when they couldn't fight off what they perceived as an attacker. And so their body acted and their muscles acted like they had to fight something, but instead they got trapped in the freeze response. So if you get the shaking to run through them, it releases that mobilization response and let them complete the trauma cycle. And I'll try and do future webinars just talking about this topic of trauma. So if the problem is, if they get that shaking going and they just shake, they can actually get looped and trapped in a shaking response, and they don't actually complete the trauma cycle. And that's when their sense of self and their mind and body systems is over identifying and resonating at the source of pain. So if you ever see a client and help them do the shaking and they don't come out of it, it's because they're perpetuating the shaking through their energy system. And you have to help them bring in a new sense of self, a higher vibration, or metaphorically more white paint, so that that trauma response doesn't habituate and loop. And often that means if it's looping or if clients are collapsing into their emotion, they're energetically merging and becoming the pain. And that's actually easy to track energetically, but you want to really watch out for any energetic merging with the emotional pain. Some students, when they first come to me, will touch a client, and the energy of their hand will go into the emotional pain that's held within that client, and then the frequency of their hand doesn't stay at that metaphorical HVC white paint. It actually goes down to the denseness of the emotional pain. And then deep healing gets stopped. It gets stuck. So being able to track if, when you're doing touch or non-touch work with a client, are you energetically merging with the pain? Is your energy field going down to the frequency of the clients, or is your field helping the client's field come up so they don't re-wound and so you stay healthy? It's a great way to have burnout. If your field goes down to the frequency of a client, you actually take on their pain without even knowing it. So for self-care and to avoid burnout, being able to track an emerging energy between you and your client, or you and your partner or your family and friends, is very, very useful. So some clients come to me and they can't feel any sensations or emotions in the body. So I give them different techniques and homework assignments to help them reconnect to the sensations and emotions in the body, because the sensations are physical representations of energy and consciousness. So you can't really help a client reawaken their wholeness if they can't feel any sensations in the body or emotions. So it's an important skill to learn how to help a client awaken that aliveness and sensations and emotions in the body. Whereas some clients have been taught to feel to heal, and all they can do is feel, and their actual train their brain, the neuroplasticity in the brain goes to overfeeling and overhealing. So I would say about a third of my clients overfeel in the beginning, a third can't feel, and a third are in between. And so learning how to assess your client or yourself quicker of what you can do. So as I'm talking, if you're going, oh, I can't feel any sensations, or I overfeel, there's a lot of support you can learn to give yourself through this. Again, just to repeat: exercise, detachment, really practicing connecting to the truth of who you are, learning how to spin your chakras, really, really getting external support so that you can learn how to connect to your body but not overfeel. Because feeling too much sadness really just collapses your energy field to be the size of the pain. In the earlier slide where I said you need to keep your field bigger than the pain. So I've got clients who had been on antidepressants for most of their life and come to me and learn how to transform the energy and get off meds. I've seen just tremendous things happen. I've seen marriages come back together because the person that came to see me learned how to not merge with their partner's energy, learned how to really transform and come to aliveness, and that changed the whole dynamic in the relationship. So people who come to me with a lot of anger, I find people are either good at anger or good at sadness. And whichever one you're good at, it's important to learn how to be able to feel the other. So those of you out there who are like, I never feel anger, well, that's your challenge, to learn how to feel anger. If you never feel sadness, well, it's your challenge to learn how to feel the sadness, but not be it. So people who have addictions tend to overcharge anger. So I work with anger very differently. So yes, I want you to learn how to feel your anger, but I don't want you to be the anger. I don't want you to charge the anger. There's skills I teach you how to, one, discharge anger if there's an overcharge of anger. And how do you feel anger that it actually transforms to power? So anger transforms to a sense of power and courage. Whereas if you're overcharging anger, you're actually going to get more angry, and you're training your brain to feel anger. So you have to be very careful about how you feel anger. So I do let my clients do some things like hit, but I never let them hit more than 5 times. Just the hitting is more like to get that mobilization reflex going and to discharge from the anger. And then you pause and you feel sensations in the body. Before you know it, you're not angry, you're in wisdom and power. So you can try that at home. Just don't hit anything too much, only about 5 hits. And don't hit, usually what my students do is they get a yoga mat and they hit their couch 5 times. It's a way to hit and not hurt your hands. So anxiety is probably one of the most dominant feelings that most clients feel that come to my practice. And there's a way to use anger to actually transform the anxiety, because the part of the brain that feels anxiety is asking you to mobilize, asking you to do something, asking you to almost react to the fear or else fight. But it's like having the gas and brake on at the same time. You're not doing either. You're not fighting and you're not collapsing into a freeze state. So the anxiety just keeps cycling. Bringing anger at the anxiety through feeling sensations in the body is a very powerful tool. So check it out. Try it with your client, and yeah, know that I'm here to do consults too to help you learn that skill. I want to talk to you about Kundalini psychosis. Oh my God, Kundalini psychosis. It is something that happens to some of us who've had a spiritual practice or are doing a lot of yoga, and their Kundalini opens up and they have psychoses and delusions because of it. So if you have a client that comes and presents that, one, I would make sure that they don't have a predisposition to schizophrenia, because some people who do a spiritual practice and have Kundalini psychosis also have a genetic predisposition to schizophrenia. So you have to be careful about that and really understand what you're dealing with. But if it's just good old-fashioned Kundalini psychosis, help them ground into the body, help them really feel their ground, and that can bring them out of a psychotic episode very quickly. So I just want to say this again: you are not your emotional pain or your false self. So do you know the difference between your false self, your defenses, and your true self? I think that's the hardest thing in the beginning is, am I in defense? Am I in an unhealthy, insecure attachment pattern? Or am I in my wholeness? And so one of the things that you can look at throughout your day is just to self-assess. Am I in my defense? Am I in my wholeness? Or am I in my false self? And simply noticing that is powerful. You can write that down on your notes. Who's present now? Who's the CEO of your ship? Your wounded self or your whole self? So I want to just talk a little bit about the brain system of PTSD before we move on to other topics. It's important to recognize that PTSD is not about the past. It's about a body that continues to behave and organize itself as if the experience is happening right now. Van de Klerk wrote this, and I'll add his book to the resources I'll give you on the replay. He says some of the best therapy is largely nonverbal, and I think you have to be careful about that, because if you leave somebody in a nonverbal state and they're freezing and re-traumatizing, that is not good either. Talking too much out of the body is not good either. There's a middle ground, and you can track the energy field to see if they need to talk, they need to do attachment work and connect to you. What is actually happening? Are they re-experiencing and thinking that trauma is happening now? How do you talk to them in a way where they can actually squarely place that trauma in the past? So if they feel it again, they know it's not here now. So laughing can't be done wrong. So you can feel laughing, joy, essence, unless it's becomes manic. You can't do it wrong, but you can cry, feel hopelessness, lonely, fear, anxiety, anger, shame, and victim consciousness in a way that harms you. I really would love for your takeaway from this webinar, from this free training, to be curious. I call it the explorer's mind skill. Curious, how do I explore how to feel to heal so I don't activate an unhealthy nervous system, so I don't neurologically hit the brake and the gas at the same time? How do you feel to heal? And tracking the energy allows you to go to the building blocks of creation, that quantum reality, and assess if there's enough HVC for transformation, or if there's too much LVC, low vibrational consciousness, and wounding, because how you feel determines if you heal. So one of the questions I'm going to ask you to think about is, could transformed emotions at that quantum level be better for you than processed emotions? Too often when people say I'm processing my emotions, they're processing them from a Newtonian solid construct reality and not from a quantum reality where those emotions, that life challenge is just particles of energy that you can rearrange. They're malleable and you can change them to really transform instead of process. After all, we don't like processed food. You know, most of you are trying not to eat processed food, right? Because processed food, it takes all the aliveness out of it, the nutrition. Well, I say processed emotions does the same. It takes out all the aliveness. I want you to get curious and bring in that explorer's mind skill that I talk about. It's skill 1 of the 5 steps and 5 skills, is how can I transform and not process my life to death? Because there are these higher frequencies. This is a picture of what I see as this energetic construct of amazing wholeness. It's I call it the multi-dimensional fabric of interconnectedness, the MDF. It's a high frequency of wholeness that you can learn to resonate at, to transform emotions instead of process emotions. This is actually a picture of the Aurora Borealis, but I was working with a client and all of a sudden this amazing high frequency of connectedness, not only the connectedness of my core being to her core being, her true self and whole self, but the whole self of all consciousness in all the universes came in. It's such a magnetic, amazing frequency of wholeness that we can learn how to resonate. I call it, again, energetic weightlifting. You can learn how to resonate at bigger and bigger amounts of HVC to advance your window of tolerance and have more transformation, more core being, more joy and conscious creation in your life. So can you connect to spirit guides? I did actually a blog last weekend on how you connect to spirit guides. And so I just want to invite you to go to my website and check the latest blog, the one for last Sunday. And it is about the brain, how the brain can prevent you from connecting to your higher self, getting those aha moments and intuition, and how the brain can actually help you. So the front part of the brain, if you start thinking too much, can actually prevent you from connecting and receiving those deep messages from your higher self, from your wholeness. Whereas if you use the back of your brain, you can actually, and your body, you can actually be more open to receiving. So my method for the best way to connect to your spirit guides is to open. You can even ask a question, open to receive, and kind of let your mind drift off and get distracted to other things. Sometimes I'll bike up a hill. I'll ask a question. I'll go for a hike. I'll distract the active thinking mind so that the true message can come through. So a great way to start is when you wake up in the morning. Get a piece of paper or a recorder, or I type on my computer all my messages. I just receive the download. Open and then receive the download. So it's really important to embody a system throughout your day, because there's this negative bias of the brain that can hold you back. And that's why I teach the 5 steps, 5 skills, and 5 spiritual laws to help you embody a system throughout the day. And yet I've given you a lot of tips in this webinar so far of tangible things you can try with yourself and your clients. So this is a picture I took when I went on safari in Africa, and I had to show up at the right time at the right place to get this perfect picture of the elephant in the river during sunset. So I want you guys to know that you can show up in your own life in the right time and the right way to create transformation and the embodiment of pain to power. In the handouts of GoToWebinar, I've given you about 20 to-dos and don'ts around energy and trauma. And so I'm going to encourage you to look through that, but I'm going to give you the highlights here. And in the replay, I'll put it in a PDF so you can look at there too. So just want to remind you, don't charge anger or any negative emotion, and really support yourself to develop the skills. I've given you a lot of tips on how to do that. Move your body, differentiation, keep your energy system bigger than the pain, but keep working it and really embody that don't. What you focus on grows. So focus on who you really are. Look at the good stuff. Studies have been shown that if you focus on what you're good at, you get more of what you're good at. So really look at what you focus on grows, and be careful what you focus on, because neuroplasticity of the brain goes both ways. You can rewire yourself to be less aware, or you can rewire yourself to be more aware. Because where awareness goes, energy flows. And I want to encourage you to really be aware throughout the day of where you're putting your awareness. Are you putting it toward the negative, toward the positive, and really support yourself in deeper and deeper levels? Because you've got many more years to live. I tell my clients, inchworm, slowly, slowly you get better, and you're going to do it. I know you are. So repattern and replace. So I want you to really think about when you feel an emotion and you release some old stuff, you really want to make sure you repattern it, let it go, and replace it with HVC. Make sure you've got plenty of white paint to replace the old negative that you let go. Otherwise, if you plow a field and you don't plant flowers, seeds will grow. Be really aware of that. So how you feel determines if you heal. You can think about your emotional challenges, your false self, and negative programming as simply one grain of sand on the beach of wholeness. Do not decide you are that grain of sand. Know that you're the beach when you feel. So how do you take this information to the real everyday world so you help yourself and or your clients? Let's talk about that. I'd love to help you deepen your skills even more. Take that theory into practice. And I'm going to invite you to join me to take this deeper and come experience transformation for yourself. It's one thing to talk about it in an hour webinar, but now it's for you to decide if you're going to take it to that next level and implement some of the things we talked about today. Because I've already developed this integrated approach for you. It's all outlined. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are ways that you can have the best of the worlds of healers, somatic trauma therapists, mindfulness practitioners, and adult attachment therapists. It is all put together for you in one targeted full training. I call it the secret code. It has 40 videos that I taped just resonating the essence of the system for you in a 14-module program I call the secret code. You don't get it from a second-tiered teacher. You get it directly from me. So let me tell you about the Secret Code program. There's 14 modules. In the first 3 modules, you learn how to incarnate more of your wholeness. You learn how to implement that explorer's mind I was telling you about, that can be the detective discovering, who's in charge now? Your wholeness, your core being, or your defenses. You learn really more about the science and the brain science of energy transformation. You get tons of support to really learn how to self-assess and regulate that mind-energy-body connection. So in modules 4 to 5, you really spend time deepening and discovering more of who you really are. You get the beginning skills and steps of the 5 spiritual laws, 5 steps, and 5 skills. In modules 4 to 5, you work on awareness of who's in charge, your lower self, your wounded self, your defensive false self, or your higher self. You learn how to promote detachment, individualization, and differentiation, so you don't merge with the pain. Spiritual law number 1 says your sense of self creates your reality. You get tons of support to self-identify who's creating your reality and how to manifest a higher reality by anchoring into your true self, rewiring your brain to anchor in to your true self. In modules 6 through 8, you learn how to use that mind as an energetic tool. You discover something about choice points. You learn how to find the choice points so that you create a better life. You learn how to follow those choice points. If a ship is just a couple degrees off course, in an hour it'll be hugely off course unless you find that choice point and reconnect your course. Go back on your life course. You learn how to name, own, and claim the blocks in your way in these modules. And in these modules, you learn how to transform them even more. You learn how to develop healing love relationships, healthy, secure adult attachment wiring. You learn how to embody the skill of the enlightened observer. So when you can't show up for yourself, you have the skill of letting the higher vibrations of spiritual wholeness, that universal wholeness, come in and support you so that you can let the universe have your back. You have to get out of your way. I mean, that's worth $1 million, right? Learning how to get out of your way. And that's what these modules are really structured in: experiential exercises, evidence-based research, and tons of practice videos that you can use for years to come. Modules 13 to 14 is really when you learn how emotional pain, life challenge, actually becomes an energetic portal back to wholeness. That God created emotional pain, this unique brain-body system with this limbic system and this neurological wiring that can feel so challenging, where it can feel like you're putting the gas and the brake on at the same time. Helps you rewire that negative sense of self, that negative reactivity in your nervous system, in your DNA, in your false self. And you start learning how to do deep, deep energetic weightlifting. So you self-identify as wholeness, and you get tons of practice developing self-love skills. Again, it's called the Secret Code Self-Mastery Program. The link for it is mindenergybody.org/secret-code. And again, there's 14 modules, very in depth, and you get to see them for years to come. And the cool thing about this online program is that it's mostly videos. You can watch the videos on your phone. It's more than 40 videos, meditation videos, lecture videos, experiential and inspiring videos that you get to watch. And you also get these bonus gifts, and you don't have to pay for these gifts. These gifts are given because I am so excited. Honestly, I want to change the world, and I want people to really understand these 5 spiritual laws, steps, and skills so they start transforming their emotional challenges and not processing them. I want to spread and change psychotherapy and healing modalities across the world so people don't think they are their emotional pain. So you have access to it for 3 years, but I also have some built-in special gifts so that you can take this even deeper. So the Facebook community, where people can talk about, in the Facebook community, they're like, oh, I use my enlightened observer. I didn't self-identify as my emotional pain. I can feel the sensations of my wholeness in my body. It's a very active Facebook community where you can exchange, share successes, ask questions. And I also offer 3 hours of private time with me for just $140. Because as you're going through the secret code, you'll have some personal support that you want to help get your transformation skills even deeper, those energetic weightlifting skills even deeper. So you get 3 hours alone with me as a private tutorial session in conjunction with the secret code for just $140 extra. You will also get, if you sign up before Sunday night, you get my free book, Explorer's Mind, A Map to Freedom. It's like 500 pages of in-depth training. If you ordered it on Amazon, it would be $45, but I'm going to pay the mailing costs and send it to you if you sign up before Sunday night. You also get a free book, Pain to Power, which is of the value of $30. You don't pay for it. You don't pay for my Explore Mind book. You don't pay for the Facebook community, and I don't charge you extra so that you can watch it over and over again over the next few years. You also don't pay for this energy personality test where it really assess you personally, and you fill out a survey, and then you get a personal printout of your unique personality, gifts and challenges to overcome. And you can actually bring that energy personality test to the private tutorial sessions you do with me, and we can look at how do you explore your gifts and embody them deeper. And that's a $35 value that you don't pay for. So again, the click to buy this is mindenergybody.org/secret code. So the free giveaways with the purchase of the secret code. So these are bonuses. You don't pay for this. I added up all those, the value of all those bonuses that I'm going to give you, it's $240. Yet the cost of the program is only $397. You get an inordinate amount of value for $397. 14 hours of training. That is intense. Plus you get private time with me. 3 hours of private time with me with only a slight extra cost. So the link again, mindenergybody.org/secret code. It's a 14-module online program. That's amazing. It is not my core certification program, but it is a huge understanding of the material in a manner where you might actually choose afterward to take my core certification program. So you click this link, mindenergybody.org/secret-code, and this is the PayPal, and immediately, within 10 minutes, all those 14 modules are delivered to you. Confirm your email, and they get delivered to you, and you can go through them immediately. I hope you start looking at it right away. Looking forward to supporting you along your way. So excited to share this work out into the world. It's time. It's like the next evolution. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. I'm sending you love and blessings.